everybody, Debbie here, and welcome to part 3, which is our final part for our celebration album and keepsake box. So if you missed out on part 1 and part 2, part 1 we made the keepsake box, and part 2 we started on the album. We made the covers, we did the inside of the covers, and then we did the sides 1 to 6. But like I said, if you missed out on any of those, then you can catch up with us on our YouTube channel. Okay, so now for the rest of this video we're going to be doing sides 7 to 12, and then we're just going to look at the decoration of the album. Okay, so let's get crafting. So let's make a start on side 7. So I've gone ahead and cut everything out. I've got my base page, here we are, and this is going to be the tag pocket. So this is our pocket. Now the pocket measures 4.5 by 4 3/4 inches, and then you're scoring on 1 short side and 2 long sides, which is what I've done. I've added my tape, and I've already gone in and cut across my corners. So if you remember, we just cut to where the score lines cross over, and then we do a little wonky bit and come the other side. So I've done that on both sides. And then on the top here excuse me, on the top here I've just mitered these corners down a little bit, because for this particular page we're going to have our backing paper on there, and then the pocket is going to sit on there as well. Okay, and so just so that it sort of hides where those lugs come around a bit, that's why I've taken it down a little bit. Okay, now we could, if you wanted to, cut slots down and across to tuck these bits in, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. I think we will get away with putting this in as it is. So our first thing first is we need to glue on our patterned paper. So let's just go around and do this like so. Okay, and then I'm just going to pop this in here. Now again, I'm allowing about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So this is my score line here on the left hand side for the hinge. So let's just line that up. It's quite bold, this paper. It's quite a nice colourful background with all the little arrows on it. Okay, almost gives you directions in terms of where to take the tags in and out. So, well, that's why I selected it anyway. Okay, and now we've got our pocket to go on. So I want the pocket to sort of come down a little bit, not right at the top and not right at the bottom, because the tags need to sit and we need to make sure that they're going to come in on that page. So I reckon we're coming about 1/4 of an inch, or maybe 3/8 of an inch up from the patterned paper. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get a ruler, and we're just going to mark 3/8 of an inch. I'm just going to line that up centrally so that when I come to put that in, and I'm coming in about 1/4 of an inch either side. Okay, so that's going to give me plenty of space. Let me just check, make sure that's going to sit in just nicely. Yeah. Okay, so let's peel off our tape, and somehow I've misplaced my pokey tool. Gonna have to do it by nail, I think, on this occasion. It's probably staring right at me and I can't see it. Let's just have a quick little look. Oh, there it is, found it. Right, okay, so just going to take the bottom bit off. So I'm going to turn this round. I'm going to add a little bit of wiggle glue like so. I'm just going to make sure that is the top. Yeah, okay, so coming in at 3/8 of an inch from the paper, okay, or I suppose you could say 1/2 inch from the base, if that makes it easier. And then as I said, 1/4 inch either side gap on the patterned paper, so I can see that nice and clearly. So that's gone in, and because we aren't putting any other paper in there, and we'll need to put a bit of black tape to go across the bottom just to help these tags smooth in and out. Okay, so we're just going to pop that on there like so. Okay, and now I can take the red liner tape off. There we go. Oops. Right, I'm just going to fold that down. Make sure we've got nice straight edges. Lovely. So that's our pocket. Now for the tags, the tag size is 3/4 inch by 5.5 inches, and I've been able to cut out a photo mat of 3 inch by 4 inch. And then what will happen is that when I finish off the decoration, I will put a strip of patterned paper at the top. But as you can see, I've just corner rounded the bottom part of the tag, and I've just done a fancy corner round on the top. You could, if you wanted to, you could, if you don't have a nice fancy corner edge, you could maybe cut a diagonal just to give it a sort of tag shape. But once I've added my paper, then I'm going to punch my hole in there and put the ribbon or the baker's twine or whatever I'm going to put in there. So, and these tuck in just nicely, so you will just see, you won't see the photo, but you will see the patterned paper just popping out at the top. And that is our side 7 done. Okay, so for side 8, now this is the new one that I've not done before, but I thought I'd give it a go. So is what I call my diagonal stacked flaps. Okay, now this is the paper that I've chosen to go on the back here, and here are my little flaps, my little diagonal flaps. So you can do this one of 2 ways. So the idea is that I would put a flap down in this bottom corner, then I would align the next one coming up with a bit of an overlap, and then I would align the next one coming up like so. So they just sort of gently overlap each other. Okay, or what you could do is you could have maybe one coming one way, well, or you could have them all going the opposite way if you preferred it that way. Or we could mix and match. We could put one on one side, one on right in the center, and one down the base here. So we have a choice of which way we want to put these. So I've called it diagonal because initially I was thinking of coming across, but we could have it as a staggered little flaps that are going to go in there like so. Okay, so with this one, what we need to do is when you open up your flap on the inside, obviously you're going to see that black mark. Now I have pre-cut my photo mats, but these are 2 inch by 2 inch, and so if we do miter those corners, that will take that away a little bit, so you're not going to see so much of the black underneath there, because when that folds over, that's going to sort of cover that. So that's one way we could do that, or we could actually put our cuts in and have these slotted in. So I think let's have a go, and we're going to do that. We're going to tuck them in, and I'm going to do them on the diagonal. So let's just get my mat and my pencil. Now obviously, because I want it to go that way, okay, when I turn it over, it means I need to sort of work backwards, if you see what I mean. Okay, so the slot, if you think about it, that's going to be in that corner there, and so this slot has got to come in down on that side there. So I'm going to allow for 1/8 of an inch coming in, and I think probably the easiest way of doing this is actually just drawing some pencil lines. So we're coming in 1/8 of an inch from the bottom. Okay, so if you imagine that's now where it's going to be, and we're coming and across there, and 1/8 of an inch from there. So let's just tuck that in, and I'm just going to draw a pencil line where that one is going to go. So now when I'll just flip that over, that will cut, and then that will go that way, so that one would work. Okay, so let's just pop that in situ for the minute. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use one of my little clips just to hold that in place, so I can get the alignment set up. Okay, now the top one is going to be coming down from that top bit and that middle bit with the 1/8 of an inch. So let's just put that in on there, and again that's where my fold is. So my fold, I'll be cutting 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the cut is going to come in here. So that is, let's have a little look. Right, so I need to cut it down to that point there. So I'm just going to mark in. So my pencil mark, so that's going to be on that very edge. So we've got one there, and then the one that's going to go in the center. So let's just, now bearing in mind obviously when I turn these over they're going to be going the right way, so it's a little bit weird working it backwards, but I think once it's done, the finished look is going to be really good. Oh, there's a clip on there. So we've come in and we've drawn those on there, and then the one in the center, okay, is going to come in, and I just need to make sure I've got the same amount of overlap on either side, and that it's sort of almost centered to the middle. So I am doing this a little bit by eye. Okay, and what I'm going to do is just draw the pencil, so that will come down there, and then let's unclip that one, and I can just take that right up to the top. Okay, so we should have our 3, if I've done it right, our pencil lines coming down. So we got the one from the top coming down, then we got this middle one, and then we got the base one here. All right, so let's give those a little cut. So coming in 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch from the top. That's it. Now I've come in on here, it's not quite, it's sort of between 3/4 of an inch and 7/8 of an inch. So just going to come in and draw down like so. So that's our second one. This paper is quite thick, I might need to just go back over that. Okay, and then I've come in on this one again, it's about between 1 inch and 5/8 and 1.5. Let's just measure that. And again, I'm just coming in. I'm not coming right down to the bottom like so. Okay, so there we are. So we've got our three slots. 1, 2, 3. So what we need to do is do our middle one first. So on the folds, if we've got the tape on the inside, I'm just going to snip off these edges, these corners, just to help make it a little bit easier to get these in situ. And let's just try that first, see how that tucks in. Almost. Might need to bring that cut up just a fraction more. Okay, that one sits in all right. So I'm just going to clip that down for the minute. Then we're going to try the second one. So we're just going to snip these. Here we go. And again, I'm just going to tuck that in. See if that's going to fit. It just needs a slight adjustment. I'll do a little bit either side because it's the one in the centre. There we are. That's going to tuck in. So that's our second one. And then our third one, again, just going to cut these off like so. And this should just tuck in on that top bit like so. Okay, and there we are. We have 1, 2, 3 stacked diagonal flaps. So now we can turn this over and we can peel off the tape and stick these down in situ. Okay. Making sure that's nice and flat, that one. Okay, now we'll come down and do the next one. And just making sure that's in nice and straight. And we can get a nice clean fold in on there. And then our third one, like so. I'm just going to fold that in over there. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and that are our stacked diagonal flaps. Okay, so the next thing is whether or not we want to add a magnet to these. Okay, to hold them down because they are sticking a little bit proud. So we could go with a magnet at the bottom and we could put a couple of little swivels on there if you wanted. But I think I'm going to go with the magnets. And what I'm going to do is that the photo mat is going to sit on the inside. There we are. Let's stick that in on the inside there when that comes over. Okay. And I suppose what we can do is maybe have a little photo mat down here as well. So I'm just trying to see where they're going to sit. There we go. So that one goes in there. We've got that one there. But obviously these top two, there isn't really room to put a photo mat as such. But what we could do is maybe, you see, because that's going to be caught with that previous one there. So what we could do is maybe just put a little square there that will have a little bit of journaling on, and the same on the other side. Okay, but we'll definitely get a photo on each on the inside and an extra one here at the bottom. Okay, and then yes, you can use the rest of that for your journaling, which I think is going to work well. Okay, so when it comes to the magnets then, so we can put a magnet on here on this side, but we're going to have to put the magnet on the back in order for that to come over and close down properly. So let's deal with one magnet at a time. So I'm just going to put my magnet on there with a little bit of tape. So sometimes this is a little bit of trial and error. But as I said, if you don't want to do magnets, you can do a little... Right, so that's going to fold over. You could do little swivels and that. And right, that holds that in place. And I can just add a bit of tape to that now. So I know that that one is already done. Okay, so that was nice and easy. Okay, and then we'll put our little photo mat on there. So let's just, and then our next one, so we're going to put another magnet on this side. So again, and we're going to do all of this before obviously we need to stick it on our base page. And I'm allowing for 1/8 of an inch because obviously the photo mat's got to go on there, so I don't want the tape showing underneath the photo mat. So now I can turn that one over. Let's just flip that. That holds that in place. These are probably the easiest magnets I've needed to put in. I'll tap that one down on there. So that is magnet 1, magnet 2. Okay, and then the final magnet, I'm going to pop that on there. Like so. There we are. And I can fold that over, turn that back, find out where that one goes. There it is. And that means that they're all nicely hidden. And there we are, 1, 2, 3. And then we can either put photos on the outside if we want, or we could put patterned paper. It's really, really up to you what you want to do with that. I will make my decision when I come to do the final decorating. So I'm just going to pop my little photo mats to one side. Okay, so let's just clear up and get this stuck down to our side 8. So that's just going to pop on there. So I've now got my hinge there on the right hand side. We're going to add lots of glue on this one because we've got to compensate for the magnets as well. Lots of lovely glue. There we go. Right. Oh, glue all over my worktop. Okay, and now we're just going to line this up and pop this on. And this is side 8. Done. But like I said, you could, instead of magnets, you could do some little swivels to go on these. And then that will hold that down. But yeah, so now we've got our little magnets and they open up like so. Perfect. Right, moving on now then, we are on to side 9, which is our gusset horizontal pocket with our accordion folio and belly band. So here is my side 9, and this is my pocket and my belly band, and I've already pre-cut all the bits for the accordion. Okay, so we'll just put that to one side for the minute. So on the excuse me, on our pocket, okay, so this one is slightly different. So you've got the gusset pocket, which is 5 3/4 by 4 1/4. So you're scoring on the 5 3/4 inch side at 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, then 5 inches, then 1/4. of an inch, okay? And then on the 4.5 inch side, you're doing a 1/2 inch and a 3/4 of an inch. And that extra 1/4 of an inch on those score lines is what is going to give us our gusset, okay? So I put the red liner tape round on the 2 short sides and the 1 long side where we've scored, okay? And what I've done is I've cut this slightly differently to what we would normally do, okay? Because what I want is a nice little boxed in section. So on here, you can see that I've come in and I've cut diagonal to where that first score line is. I've cut out all the rest of it. So let me just scribble on here what you're cutting out. So you're cutting out the main little square that you would have created and these 2 rectangles. And what you're left with is just this tiny little square here in the middle, okay? And that one is what we need to keep. So we have to cut out all of that. So let me just do that on here. So I'm just going to cut and across like so. And then I'm just going to cut out that little rectangle. So it just leaves me with that little square intact, okay? And I've got that on both sides. And then I've mitered the corners. So I've just come in a little bit. Just cut that one, and I'm just going to come in on there, okay? Because when we fold this together, we want to make sure that it's going to sit nice and flat. And I've done the same on the other side. And then with the little square, I've just cut one side so it creates like a little flap, okay? So I'm just going to come in, and I've only just cut it up to that last score line. So you should end up with a little flap that's going to tuck in like so, okay? So let's just fold over these score lines. Let's give these a little burnish like so, okay. Is that not quite on that score line, Deb? You'll come over a little bit. That's it. Okay, and I've already pre-folded that one, so I just need to come in and fold this one. So just making sure that these score lines are nice and firmly folded, okay? So I'm just going to show you what we're going to do. So basically on one corner, you're going to fold over one, you're going to fold over the other, and that little flap bit there, or tag, we're just going to tuck in. And when you fold that other bit over, you will see that it will create a nice, neat corner. Okay, I think I need to cut this. I don't think I've come quite down far enough just to allow it to fold over better. Right, okay. So that will now come in, and we will glue that together, and that will create your box almost. That will do exactly the same on the other side. So let's just get a little bit of glue. I'm just going to put a tiny little bit of glue on either side where the little tabs are. And now I can just tuck that in, and I'm just going to fold that down, and I just need to hold that for a minute. It is a little bit fiddly, I'll be honest. Can I get one of my little clips in there just to hold that in situ? Yes, I can. Just like I said, it's a little bit fiddly. Actually, let's just hold it with your finger, Deb. There we go. And we're just going to come and do the same on the other side. So you are creating almost a box on there. All right, I'll just hold that in place just a little bit longer. Okay, right, wait for that glue to catch. I suppose I could have put a tiny little bit of red liner tape on there, but it would have been so fiddly. Right, I'm just looking up, neaten up that edge a bit. So now you will see that when we fold this over, we have created that gusset pocket. Okay, so we'll bring in our page here, and this is literally going to sit with that side of that gusset right up to the edge, right up to that edge of the page almost. In fact, it's very tiny. There's a slither of room either side. Okay, and when we come to stick it down, we need to make sure that our side bits here are actually straight. Okay, that they are in line and make that nice box shape. What we don't want is to stick it so that it's wonky. It needs to be nice and straight. So like with any pocket, we're going to start off with the bottom one. This is going to be a little bit fiddly. Okay, and we're just going to put our glue on there. All right, and I'm just going to sit that down as close to the edge as we can. I'm coming up just a smidgen on that. Okay, so I can just get my fingers in there, and I'm just going to run a little bit of tape on that inside bit. So let's just get that. So this is a little bit more trickier than some of the others, but the effect of it looks really good, so it's worth all the extra effort. Okay, so now that is stuck down, and that's against our edge now. We're now just going to peel off these sides. Come on. Oh, goodness me. Right, that's one side, and the other side. Okay, and now I'm just going to bring that down, and I'm just going to make sure that when I stick this first one down that they are in line and straight. So do take your time with this bit. Okay, so that one's stuck in. Okay, and this one just needs to come in just a fraction like so. And perhaps I should have added a little bit of glue on that. I think that's going to work. Okay, but as I said, it is quite tight against that edge, that hinge bit. All right, and there we are. So that is now our gusset horizontal pocket done, and as you can see, you've got a nice neat finish on there. Okay, and now we're just going to put together our folio. So I've gone ahead and cut all the pieces for this. So we've got 4.5 inch by 6 inch times 4 of those. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've got one that hasn't got a scored edge on that, because that's going to be the finished one. Now you'll see here that where I've folded it, I've put the tape on the inside of 1, 2, 3, and then on the 4th piece I've put it on the outside. Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to line this up so that tucks in there, and then that edge is going to come over and fold down and glue that down. All right, so we're going to build our accordion page. So let's just peel that off, and I'm just going to tuck that into where that score line was, making sure the top and bottom edge is nice and straight, and I can just fold that over. Okay, now I'm going to turn that round because I just find it easier to work that way. All right, so I'm going to get my next one, okay, which has got the red line of tape on the inside. There's a bit there on the inside, and again I'm just going to repeat the same as that. So we're just going to peel off the tape. Going to tuck this in and fold that down like so. Okay, all right, and now I'm going to turn that around again. We've got our final piece, which has got the bit on the outside, and that's going to tuck in again. So I'm going to just rinse and repeat, and I'm going to just tuck that in like so. Fold that over, and there we are. So we're now building up that accordion, okay, and then the final piece is going to sit and line up on that edge of where that tape is. Okay, now this one I might add just a little bit of glue just to help with the lining up, like so. There we are. And I just need to line that up so it goes to the edge of where that fold is, and it's nice and level on the top. And I think we are pretty much there. Okay, and that is our accordion folio almost done. Okay, so the only bit we've got left now is the belly band. So the belly band was 9 inches by 1.5 inches, and when you do your scoring on it, you'll notice that these are very close together, these 3 scores on either side, and that's to sort of give it a little bit of a rounded effect. Okay, so that when you come to get your accordion folio, it's going to wrap round nicely on there, and you're going to, it will allow for a little bit of wiggle room, and when you put your photo mats and so forth in there, so that will slide up and down, and you'll be okay. So for this bit, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. Now you could, if you wanted to, wait until you've put your photos in or your photo mats in before you go round and lock this in place. Okay, so I'm going to do mine with a little bit of glue, because trust me, it'll be easier if I need to undo it later or not, that it's easier to peel the glue off than it is to get the red liner tape off per se. So, and I'm just overlapping that about 1/2 inch ish. Okay, and now that will slide up and down, and when we get our pocket, that is just going to slot in. Now once we put our cardstock in there, just to finish that off, that will slide in like so. And actually you could have the belly band up further, so it almost looks a bit like an extra stacked pocket on that side. Okay, so that is side 9 done. Right, so for side 10, it's our lovely little stacked pockets. Okay, so again, like with any pocket, we are just going to do exactly the same. So I've cut it out, I've scored down my 2 short sides, 1 long side, and I'm just going to go in and cut across to the score lines where they cross over and give myself a little wonky bit, and I'm just going to do the same on the other side. So this is what I call my standard stacked pocket, because it hasn't got a slotting element on these. Okay, so we're just going to fold and fold like so, and then that is just going to sit on the bottom, and we have got a little bit of room, just a very tiny smidgen all the way round, so bring it as close to that edge as you can. So let's just fold that in, give those a proper score. There we are. Okay, and I'm just going to, like with all the other pockets, we're just going to peel this off. Going to add a little bit of glue. There we go. I'm just going to attach this onto the edge. I'm coming close to that edge there, like so. Okay, and then we're going to add a little bit of tape on the inside. There we are. 1, 2, 3. Lovely jubbly. And now we can remove the bits. Now, obviously, I'm not pushing too much on here because side 9 on the other side has got the gusset pocket, so I don't really want to squash that. And I think probably in hindsight I should have maybe done side 10 first, and then side 9, but this side isn't that complicated, so we should be okay. All right, so that is our base pocket done, and then our next pocket, just going to fold like so, and again I'm just going to check to see that that's going to line up, which it will do. So I'm going to take the tape off both ends. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to either end just to allow me to do the wiggle if I need to. Okay. All right, I'll just add a little bit. There we go. And we've got squeaky wiggle glue. Okay. And now I'm just going to, so the idea is that you need to make sure that you line up this fold with the one at the bottom of the pocket, and that you've got it nicely lined up straight with the other side, like so. And there we are, and that is our stacked pocket done. And then my photo mats I've got here, so I can tuck a big one in at the back and then a couple of little smaller ones in the front, and that is side 10 done. So for side 11 we are doing diagonal stacked pockets. Okay, so let's just put my photo mats over there out the way for the minute, my little sticky thing, and I've cut 2 squares. Okay, so you've got the base pocket, which is 4.5 by 4.5, and then you've got the top pocket, which is 3.5 by 3.5. And what we're going to do first of all is that we're going to cut them across diagonally. So let me just get my ruler. Okay, I'm just going to line those up like so. There's one. And don't throw this away because you can always use this to make another pocket on another album. And we're going to do the same on the smaller square, like so. There we go. So I'm going to hang on to those. And then what I need to do is do some scoring now. So let's just move those out the way. Bring my scoreboard in. And what we're going to do is that we're going to score on what I call the 2 short sides. Okay, and we're scoring by 1/2 inch. So just lining that up. So there's 1. Now, if you find this bit a little bit tricky, what you could do is maybe with the square is actually score around all 4 sides 1/2 inch and then cut it diagonally, if that makes it easier for you. Okay, so that's the score lines done. So now I can add my bit of red liner tape. Where's my scissors? There we are. Oh, goodness me. Right, okay. So I'm just going to add, don't worry about the diamond bit at the top, or the little triangle bit at the top, because we will be trimming some of that off. So I'm just putting the red line of tape where we've done our score lines. Okay. And I'm going to do that on both of these. There we go. And we're going to do the same on this side. Okay. Right, let's just get my lovely burny burnish. Give that a quick rub down. Like so. Right. So as always with our pockets, we're going to treat this corner exactly the same. We're going to cut to where the score lines cross over, and then we're going to give it a little wonky bit. I'm going to do the same on this one, cut to the score lines and give it a little wonky bit. And now I can fold these back and give them a bit of a burnish down. Like so. So we've got a dinky little pocket there. It looks a bit like Batman, I think, or maybe a cat. Okay. And I'm just going to score down that side, and we're going to score down that side. So now what we need to do, I'm just going to trim that. That's it. Right, okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to cut these off. So I just come in from the inside and I just cut it to the point, and again I'm just going to take that off. So we're just taking them off. Okay, and then we're going to do exactly the same on the smaller one. Like, oh, come on, cut. Oh, it's not cutting that. That's it. Right, okay. So let's just get rid of those. Okay, so with our side 11, we are going to pop this down in this corner here. Now obviously you've got your, let's just snip that bit off. That's better. Right, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to sit one down in this corner, and then we're going to add the other one on the top. Okay, and again the base paper is just going to tuck inside that. So I'm going to take this almost to that edge, but not quite, but I am going to come up about 1/8 of an inch from the bottom, just so that that lines up nicely. And exactly the same, we're just going to put our glue on our zip. So by now, if you've gone ahead and done all the other pockets, you should be well and truly expert at this now. Okay, and we're just going to tuck that down. I'm just lining that up, making sure I'm not inhibiting the score line for the hinge. Just going to come along. There we go. And because I know my sheet of paper will go right the way in, I don't necessarily need to put a bit of tape, but I suppose I've done it for all the others, so I might as well. I thought, shall I, shan't I? Oh, what the hell, it's only a bit of black tape. Right, okay. And now we're just going to take off this other one, like so. And I'm just going to fold that up. And that is fine on there. And then the smaller one is going to come and sit right on the top, so an alignment with the bottom one. So let's just get rid of our tape, add a little bit of glue, squeaky squeaky wiggle glue, and now I can line this up in that corner, making sure it is sitting absolutely bang on top of that other triangle. Okay, so that's where I've stuck it. There's the edge coming along there, and I've stuck this top one right on top of that edge. Just add a little bit of tape. Like so, and then that's going to come down and stick on there, and that is our diagonal pocket done. And then once we've put our patterned papers in, I've got a big mat that will sort of tuck in at the back there, and then these little ones will sort of sit in there like so. Okay, and now we're on to our final side, side 12. So side 12, let's just clear some space, is the, what I call the pull it waterfall. I didn't know what else to call it, but basically you're going to pull something and it's going to do the waterfall effect. So it's a little bit different to some of the other waterfalls that I've done in previous projects. Okay, and we've got a couple of elements here. So the first bit is what I call the base. All right, now this is 4 1/4 by 11 1/4. Okay, and you're scoring on the 11 1/4 inch side at 2 3/4, and then you go 3/4, 3 3/4, 4 1/4, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, and 5 3/4. Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to fold these back and forth on each of the score lines, making sure that we are keeping our paper nice and straight with our folds. Okay, otherwise that could potentially hinder the movement of this this particular effect of our waterfall. Right, okay, and now we're going to come down. So I've seen this done quite a lot on cards and things like that, and people have just done them as they are standalone, but I thought it would be good fun to maybe put one of these in an album. And so we'll give it a go and see what happens. So let's just fold that back on there, and then our final bits we're going to fold in on that. All right, so we've really folded them, so they're really gonna roll nicely when we come to do our bits. Okay, so what we need to do is stick on our cards. Okay, and I've already prepped my cards that are going to go on here. So I've put photo mats just on one side. Okay, so the idea is that once that's done, we can fix these straight on. So it's up to you whether you want to put photos on or whether you're going to put patterned paper. I have left one blank because I might use patterned paper on the very last one. So what we're going to do is that we need to line these up against each of the score lines. Okay, so one's going to sit there, and then we're going to have one that's going to go on like so against the score line. So you're going to stagger them as they go up. So what I'm going to do is, because it's a mechanism, I'm going to use my red liner tape for this, and we'll just find the edge, and I'm just going to put a strip of red liner tape in each of those scored sections. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, just 3 more to go. 3, 4, 5, and 1 more makes 6. So this is our base. Okay, things are good. Rub along, and so we're going to start with the shorter end at to us. Okay. So where did I put my lovely pokey tool? I had it here a moment ago. There it is. All right, so I'm going to undo one, add some glue, and add the first one on. So I'm lining it up just to the top of where that score line is, so it almost lies flush, and I need to make sure that I've got it lined up with the edge of my papers as well. So that is the first one in. Okay, perfect. And now we're just going to do this on all the other ones. So a bit of glue, and I'm going to grab this one and I'm just going to again put that just under where that score line is. I don't want to stick it on the score line because that's going to impact on the movement of it. So you're literally just coming down just a smidgen on our score line. Right, okay, and here we go. And then the next one. 1, 2, 3. So you can see already, where's that face, that we're getting that movement, which is what we're after. Here we go. And we'll put the next one on. Line it up with the edge. Okay. 2 more to go. So I think this is going to have a really lovely impact in our album. It's just going to be something a little bit different. Okay, oops, not quite. Let's stick that line up on there. There we go, there's that one. And then our final one, let's just put our glue in like so. And like I said, I hadn't put the photo mat on this one yet because I might put patterned paper on the top. I don't know yet, I haven't decided, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so that is our movement. Okay, so what we're going to do now is that we're going to come right to the bottom. Now where we had the first one put in, we've got this little bit of card here, so I'm just going to basically, with our belly band, now I've not put any score lines on here because what we're going to do is we're going to tuck that in underneath that bit right up to where that edge is, and we are just going to fold it back on itself. So this first bit, this long bit of card here, we've now fold that back, and I'm going to fold these over. Okay, and now I can give them a bit of a score on there, and we're just going to bring that one over And again, we're just going to give that a little bit of a score. All right, so I'm going to take that off and just explain it one more time. Okay, so there's your piece that would have potentially my patterned paper on it. We're going to fold that bit back. You're going to go to the very last or the first photo that you put on, and underneath you've got that little flap bit here, and this is where this belly band is going to sit across there up against that edge. So we're just going to tuck that right in. Okay, and then we're going to bring this round and we're going to fold these over, and we're going to add a little bit of glue to secure that. So the idea is that this very back bit here, or this bit that we've just wrapped around, we should be able to pull, and the whole thing should be able to flap over. But because it's not secured anywhere for a minute, let's just get that stuck down, and then we can do that bit. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue in there just to hold that in situ, and then I'm going to add a little bit of black tape to that just to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. Oh, cut that a little bit too long. Okay, just so we're securing that nicely on there. Okay, so the idea is that we should try not to hold the bits, be able to pull that, and it should, let's give it a little bit of a helping hand. It's a little bit stiff at the moment. Okay, right, we're just going to move that forward like so. There we go. So now we can see where that tucked in. Okay, let's tuck that back in. So the bit that we're going to pull is this very back piece here. Okay, because when you hold the sides, that is going to do that movement. Okay, now my piece there is tucked under there quite neatly, I should say. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add an extra little bit to that to do the pull here. So now we've got our mechanism working. I've just taken mine off for a minute because I need to open it up here so I can attach the little pull element at the bottom. Okay, so this is just a 1-inch strip by 4 inches, and I've just folded it in half. Okay, and I've just taken one of my little tabs, and I'm just going to glue that where the folded bit is here. I'm just going to glue that on the end because I want quite a nice finish, but this wasn't long enough to attach to the bottom. Okay, so let's just get that stuck on there. If you don't have a tab, then you can, you can use that as well, but I just wanted it to finish off because with everything else I've got is little tabs finishing, so it's just my little finishing touch on here. Okay, and I'm just going to attach that onto where that folded edge is. Okay, like so, and then when this is folded down, I want to make sure that you're going to see this at the bottom. So let me just put this on the back bit there so I can just see where that's going to come down like so. So I can just line that in because I want you to be able to see that at the bottom. So that's where it's going to sit. So if I look now on the inside, I can see roughly how much I need to come down. So it would have had a very small bit stuck on if I just stuck the tab on. So that's why I've given it a nice long extension bit so that it will hold that in place. So let me just test that one more time and see how that's going to look, because I just want that to line up with that bottom bit there. Okay, so let's just keep my finger on that. So I'm just going to put a little pencil mark there so I can see where I need to glue that onto. Okay, so I'm just going to add this onto there, and I've done it double thickness because this is going to get quite a lot of abuse with it being pulled in and out all the time. So I'm just using that pencil line and I'm just centering that on there, and I could write on there just pull, the word pull, or I could put a little coloured bit of coloured circle of patterned paper on there. Okay, so that is now on there, so now you can see that nice and clearly. And so when that sits on our page, which I've put somewhere safe, oh there it is, it's right in front of me, so that will attach to our page like that, and it comes over just slightly, but it will still be within the album, so that's okay. And now the mechanism, okay, so this bit here where this is going to slide in, what I will say is try not to make this too tight, otherwise it's not going to flow as well. Okay, so if I just hold that like that, and now I can pull that and that will come down. Now what I'm finding is that on the bottom one, that's not quite flipping up, so what I could do is I could stick that bottom one onto there, but no, I don't think so. I think we're going to get away with that actually. It's just making that, it's because it's all relatively new. So I think what I might do, if I stick this bottom bit here onto the underside of that and line it up with that, then I'm not going to lose that, and then that should make that nice and firm. I know some people don't do that, but because this is going into an album as well, I need it to be able to be quite sturdy. So on this very bottom bit here, I'm just going to add a bit of glue, and then I'm going to slide this up and stick it on so it lines up with the bottom of that. So let's give that a go. If all else fails, I'll take it off. But I just want to make sure that this is going to be sturdy enough to go in our album. Right, okay, so I'm just going to hold that down for a minute. And also it will prevent it from coming out at the bottom. So now let's see. Yeah. And that is just, I think that one is just catching. What's that catching on? It's just that last one catching on there. So I think, because that is our front, let's give that a good squidge down with those belly band sides. Make sure that that is going to be smooth enough for that to cut through. That's it. Yeah, and now that firmly holds that in place, and now we can slide that back in. Okay, it takes a little bit of a wiggle, but you get the idea. Okay, and that is our, is that going to stick right down? Right, that's it, and that catches in on there. So I think that is catching on that little bit. So I'm just going to add a little bit of black tape across there just to stop that. Just so that helps that transition on the back and the front as well. Okay. And I think we are good to go. Okay, so that is working much better. It's not catching on anything now. Okay, sometimes it's good to try these things first before you stick it in the album, so that we don't have any mishaps. Okay, so I can see my glue's come off of there, so I'm just going to peel that back and reattach some glue just to re-stick that down. Make sure those ends are okay. I'm just going to add a bit more tape onto that. There we go. Oops, got a little bit of tape stuck on there. Right, okay, so that should be firmly down. Holding that works so much better. Okay, so now we need to fix this strip here onto the back of our page. Okay, now looking at it, I will be honest, it is a fraction bigger width-wise than the page itself, because I wanted to make sure I got some lovely 3x4 photos on there, and because of the band bit that goes round, when this hinge is attached, it will just overhang slightly, but because it's the last page, it's not going to make too much difference. Okay, it's not going to impact on the page itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to center it. Okay, and I'm just going to where the base is here, where that band bit is, I'm just going to put a little pencil mark just so I know roughly where I'm going to stick it. And what I'm going to do is, again, because it's a mechanism one, I'm going to add some strips of red liner tape, because I want to make sure that this is not going anywhere. So I'm just going to pop that on that one and pop that on that one, like so. There we go. And whoops, nearly lost that then. And just give that a good burnish. So that is sealing in everything on that belly band. And now we're just going to unpeel it, and I will add some glue on here before we stick it down, like so. Just do this last little bit. Add some glue. There we are. Okay. And now we're going to pop this on our page. So where that pencil line is, I'm just lining that up just a fraction over there, making sure that is fairly straight. Okay, so now we've got it in position. Let's just hold that down and see if it's gonna work. Right, and there we go. It's still catching a little bit, but I think once it's had time to work its way through. I can see I'm catching a bit on there, so I might just add a little bit of tape across those bits. But what I will do is put a little bit of patterned paper on there. That might work and look a little bit nicer when you're pulling that down. So we could even possibly add a little photo mat on there. So when you pull that up and down, it's going to slide so much better, and it's like a little secret one then. Oh, there we go. Let's come out the other side. Okay, and then yeah, we can pull that down, and that works so much better. So I'm just going to do a couple of tweaky bits. I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on there just to help with that transition as that's going through. This is the beauty of this black tape. And then yeah, what we can do is maybe add a photo mat down in on this bit, So as you pull it out, you've got a nice little photo mat there, and then that will just slide in and out with it. Or you could put a message, or you could put a 3x4 card or what have you on there, but I think that will work. And then that tucks in nicely, and there we go. And that is our final page done. So all that's left now is to put these in the album and decorate. So let's get to it. Right, so I've gone ahead and I've cut out all my patterned papers, and I've inked and done all my faux stitching. Okay, and I've just cut out everything. I've just tucked it into where it's going to need to go. So I won't put the covers on the outside until I finish doing all the album and putting it together, because I don't want to get those papers damaged or anything before I've finished. So let's just have a little look here at the inside. So as you can see here, now I've tried to mix and match up the papers a little bit, give it a little bit of interest, I suppose is the word. I'm trying to think of what it is then. Right, okay. Now, when I was obviously making the album, some of the papers I didn't have a huge amount of in this set, so you'll probably see that some of my papers are slightly shorter than what I've written on the patterns, but that's absolutely fine, because for you guys that will be okay. Now, little tips that I do is I always put my pocket on first, the front pocket patterned paper on first, and then I line up the back pocket to go with that. So let's just get this first one in on the inside cover. Okay, and I'm just using glue, which is not very forthcoming. So I just swap that out and pinch another one. There we go, because we're going to need a fair bit of glue to get everything stuck down. Now, there are elements in here that we have in the album that we haven't quite finished yet. So as we're sorting out the pages, we will get to, I can show you how to complete them. Okay, so just for starters for 10, we're just going to pop that on there on the front, and then just going to do the back like so. You can hear and the quality of the paper that I'm using from Cartabella, it's just really lovely. So we're just going to tuck that in and push that down. And now I just need to make sure I line it up at the top. Make sure I've got a nice straight edge at this top flap bit here, and that I am straight with the front pocket. It's just so that when you open it up, your eye is follows through with that. Okay, let's have a little look. And then the inside pocket is going to go on. So I think I'm just a fraction out of there, so I might just move this one over just a tad. That's it. So I'm just trying to get that eye to follow all the way through. And it will probably stand out more on the orange than it will on the cream bit of card that I've used. Okay. And now I can just go in and add this when we get some more glue. Right, okay. Lovely. And we're just going to stick that on there. Now I have gone ahead, and where I've corner rounded on the flap, I've done the same on my patterned paper. Okay, and again I'm leaving that about that 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So that now closes up nicely, and now we've just got the front here, and I've gone ahead and corner rounded that as well. So we'll just pop that all in. Okay, and we're just going to tag that in on there. Again, I'm lining up, making sure that my straight edges there, and that I'm straight at the top as well, because they're the sort of things that your eye gets drawn to. And we'll just make sure that's stuck nicely over the magnets that we put in earlier. So there we go. So that is the inside done. And here we are, and here are my little photo mats, so I can just tuck those inside. Okay, now for the back, because we've got the doors, I've cut the back inside cover bit. So let's just take the photo mats out. I'm just going to stick this one down. I think I might have to go and grab another glue bottle at this rate. Come on, glue. There you are. There's still plenty in there. It's just not wanting to come and play today. All right, let's make sure we've got plenty of glue in there. Going to stick that down. And I'm just making sure that I've sort of got that centered within where those flaps are on either side, making sure I've got the same sort of distance from the top and the bottom, and coming in on the sides. So I'll just tuck that over just a fraction more, making sure we're nice and straight as we can. Let's just have a little look at that. That's not too bad. That looks a little bit wonky. Let's just bring that up just a fraction. Okay. So that's the inside done, and then I cut out of the same pattern the inside of the flaps as well. And what I've done is I've just followed the same paper all the way down, and I've corner rounded them. Now obviously if you're using directional paper, just bear in mind that you will need to do your corner rounding in the right place. But this isn't really got any sort of direction to it, so I could just go ahead and do two of the random corners for corner rounding. Come on, glue. Here we go. All right, and now we'll just stick that one on there. Okay, like so, and again making sure I've got a nice sort of straight line. So it's always good to make sure that you cover the inside flaps where you can as well. It just finishes it off. But right, okay, and now for the outside, I've gone with the same sort of orangey colour. We've got airmail on here, so I'm just going to come on glue. it's making lots of noise, but it's not doing much. Right, okay, and I've got corner rounded. So this is what I mean by directional paper. Obviously I've corner rounded it, and I've corner rounded it at the bottom just to make sure that the lettering is correct on there, and then the same on the other one. Okay, like so. And we'll just check that in, make sure that that's all good. Yeah, nice and straight. Okay, well, I'm just going to pop the lid back on with glue for a minute. Hold that in situ. Okay, so now we come to the doors. So the doors, the paper I cut so that it sort of followed across. So, but I have done exactly the same on either on the inside as well as the outside. So I think those were the ones that matched up, and then I think we had it come in that way for the inside. Yeah, okay, so I can now attach these as well. So it's easier to sort of get these decorated first, before we add our pages in. Okay, and just a little tip as well, is I always cut out the big bits out of the pattern paper first. So I always cut out the covers and cut out the bigger pieces, like all the backs of the pages and that, and then I just go and fill in all the smaller bits with whatever scraps and stuff I've got left over. Just trying to eke and make good use of your paper. Okay, so just checking to make sure that I've got the same sort of gap coming across there, and that we're level at the top and the bottom, and I'm going to do exactly the same on the inside. Now the closure for this one, I've sort of called it a corset closure, but it's a bit like one of those things that you get like on those folio envelope sort of things that you can get hold of. So that's what I'm going to show you next. Right, so we'll just stick that down. That's all good. And then our last bit of the doors, and then we can do our little fancy closure on there. Oh, glue all over my fingers. Right, okay, we're just going to tuck that in like so. Right, pop the lid on. Right, there we are. Okay, so that is our two flaps and our doors and the back done. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pinch these together for the minute, because what we need to do is sort out where our closure is going to go. Now I've given you some measurements, okay, that if you haven't got the perfect circles die sort of set from Cool Cat's Craft, for example, and this set would be ideal for this particular task, then you can go ahead and do as I'm doing, just so I wanted to show you, with just ordinary circle punches or circle dies. So we've got 3/4 of an inch black ones, and then we've got 1/2 an inch with the little patterned paper. So what I've got here is that I cut out, or I punched out 8 circles, and I've stuck 3 sets together, and I'm just going to do the 4th set. So we're just going to put some glue on there like so. I'm just going to sandwich that together so we end up with a double thickness. Okay, all right, and then we basically got 2 of these double thicknesses with 1 patterned, and the same on the other. So these are going to come either side of our door. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop my patterned paper onto one of them. So I'll just put a little bit of glue on there. Where's my tweezers? Because this is going to get a little fiddly. Here we are. And I can just centre that. Okay. Oops. There we go. I'm just going to do the same on the other side. I'll just put a little bit of glue on there. So these are going to be the tops of our closure. Just going to pop you on there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is just hold the 2 sets together with a bone folder, with my pokey tool. I'm just going to make a slight hole in the center, and because my patterned paper has got a center circle in there, just makes it easier. I'm going to try and do this without stabbing myself. Right, there we go. All right, and now I can just poke that through and get that through onto the other side, just so I'm making a little hole. Now on the perfect circles, they actually already come with holes made in them, and they are centered, so so you can use those. But I just wanted to show you what to do if you didn't have that die set. So just have to be a little bit careful and not stab yourself. Okay, so that's made a little hole in the center there, and just going to take that down into the center. So I'm going through double thickness of black card here. Okay, right, so now I've got my 2 sets here. I managed to find some tiny little orange brads that I had, so I'm just going to poke that in. I'm going to poke that through, and I'm just going to fold those back. I'm not going too tight with it because the black cord that we're going to use will need to come into the center of those. All right, so it's almost like we're putting 2 discs together. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a movability, okay, just so that we can get our black cord in there. Right, I'll just give this a little, bend this out just a fraction, just to ease with that. Okay, so now we've got that sort of effect going on, and we're just going to do the same on this other one. So we're just going to poke it in. Now these have quite short, because they are quite tiny little brads, it's got quite short folds on the back here, the little metal spiky bits. So let's just fold those back. Okay, and again I'm just going to get my thumb in there, and I'm just going to maneuver that black cardstock just a little bit, just to allow for us to create a little bit of a valley, I suppose, in between those. Right, so that's what we've got. Right, now we're going to get our black cord. Now this is waxed, so that means it won't hurt your fingers when you're winding it round. And I'm just going to tie a little loop. There's a little loop there. I haven't pulled it quite, but I'm just going to grab one of these, and I'm just going to hook it over the back of that, and now I can tie that off. She says, I appreciate it's a bit hard to see me doing it black on black. And then we're just going to tie another little knot. So basically I'm tying the knot around the legs of the tack, or the brad, whatever you want to call it. There we go. All right, so that's that side secure. Okay. And just going to trim that. There we go. And before I cut this cord, what I'm going to do is just, let's give myself a little bit of a length. I think would be all right with that length. I can trim up the length later. Oh, that's fallen on the floor. Right, so I'm now going to use a little bit of red liner tape on the back, because I want it to hold that in situ, but also give me some strength on the back of that. So that's now nice and neatly stuck on there, like so. And if I peel this off, okay, let's just do that. I'm going to add some glue, and I'm going to stick this onto our door. So while that's just coming off, let's just grab our ruler and we're just going to work out where the center point is. So the doors are 6.5, so 6 is 3, so that's a quarter. So I'm just going to put, so that's 3.25, so I'm just going to put a little mark on the door there, and that's where I'm going to stick this down. Okay, and we've got it, and I'm coming in about 1/8 of an inch from the paper edge, the patterned paper that I'm talking about, not the actual door edge. All right, and we're just going to let that stick firm. Okay, and then I'm just going to add some red liner tape to the back of this one, and we're going to stick this opposite the other one on the page. There we go. I'm just going to stick that down. It's going to hold that in place, and I'm just going to take that off. There we go. Add some glue. So it's just another different way of doing a closure rather than using like a magnet closure. So I wanted to do something a little bit different on this one. Okay, and now I just need to make sure that I line it up, coming in again about 1/8 of an inch from the other side. Okay. All right. I'm just going to let those sit and dry for a minute. Okay, and then we'll come back and we'll work out how much black cord we need, and then we're going to put a little end bit on there, which is when we're going to be punching out a couple of the smaller black ones, and then we can put a little bit of pattern paper on there. So I'm just going to let that dry for a minute, because we want to make sure that we get a good fixing on that. Right, okay, so that should have given it enough time just to set. And what we're going to do now is just wind the black cord around, so it's effectively going in between those two circles that we did. And I'm going to come round the top here, and we're just going to leave that dangling a little bit there. And let me just grab my scissors, and I'm just going to snip off a little bit. Now I'm going to tie a knot in the end. I'm just going to do that again, because I want to give it a little bit of bulk, so that when I attach the end bits on, it's got something to grip to. Okay, I might trim that off. You see, that could go back round there. We've got plenty. All right, so here are my two circles, my black ones. So again, I'm just going to add my glue like so. Thank you, Siri. You got to love modern technology that's listening in, not on you, haven't you? Right, so I'm just going to tuck that there into the centre. Push that end down. I'm just going to pop that one on over the top, and then we're just going to sandwich that together like so. Give that a good squeeze. And now I'm just going to put on my little circles. Or actually, I haven't inked around those. Let's do those. I decided not to do faux stitching on these tiny little ones, but we will just give that little edging of black. There we go. just to cover up the, and now I'm just going to put a little bit of circle on there, tuck that in on the center like so. And I'm just going to turn that over, and we're going to do the same on the other side. So it doesn't matter whichever way this is dangling in the album, you've got the little pattern circle on there. Okay, and that is our little sort of corset finish. Right, let's just move that over just a fraction. That's it, try and get that centered as much as I can. Here we go. All right, and that is our little windy mechanism for our album cover here at the back for the doors. So we go round, and we can go in and around. Might take just a little moment or two just to get it used to the cardstock just following through, and we can come round and do it on that side. There we go, and now that just dangles down in the front. Okay, right, so let's put you to one side and let's have a look at our first side, which was our stable doors. So here we go. So I think the stable doors are fairly straightforward. It's just a case of gluing and sticking. So I've got my backing paper here. Let's just move everything out of the way for the minute. So we're just going to go ahead now and start sticking some of these bits down like so. Okay, and this is going to tuck underneath that belly band, so it just covers up those edges there, and it covers up the magnets as well. And we're just going to try and get that centered in where the doors come over. So there we go. Give that a good push. The belly band itself, which I think I've put somewhere, it's gone missing already. Oh goodness me, I'll come back and do the belly band another time. But I've got here my papers, so depending on what I wanted to put on the outside, I think I had the white ones in on the outside and the orange ones on the inside. So I'm just wondering what I've done with the belly band now. I'm sure it will turn up. It's probably got caught up with all the other papers, so nothing to worry about. And I'm just going to pop that on the inside. And again, I'm just making sure that that is centered. Now, you don't have to put patterned paper on the inside. You could put little photo mats. You could put little journaling cards on the front, on the insides here if you wanted. That's absolutely up to you. Okay, and we're just going to pop that one in there, so it's just covering those magnets. Bring that down just a little bit, make sure we're nicely centered like so. So they're going to come across, and then I've got the two on the front, and I've left the plain ones on the front because I've got some lovely stickers and things like that, and ephemera bits that I might use for decorating out the front of here. Okay, so we're just going to pop one on there like so. Let me just lift that so I can see that that is centered. And what you could do, if you've got a really nice picture, maybe on one of the 4x6 cards, you could actually stick that across and split it in the middle. So you could do that, or you could even do that with a photo. You know, if you've got a really nice 4x6 photo, and you could have it spread across the two doors. So it gives you just quite you know, some lovely options there of what you can do with that. So apart from me losing the belly band bit, which, like I said, is probably around here somewhere, that is side 1 done. And then side 2 is just our pocket, our vertical pocket. So again, here we are. I'm just going to stick that on. Now, I did realise that when I was coming to do the paper for this, that the pocket front, this bit here, was just a little bit deeper for the 3x4 cards if you wanted to use a 3x4 card. Okay, and I've just realised I've stuck that round the other way. I normally do this first, and yeah, so I'm going to have to move that over. So what you can do if you want to is just shorten your pocket a little bit if you just want a 3x4 card to sit on there. I've just added a little bit of the background to that just to sort of make that card work. But if you wanted to use a 3x4 on that, then you could sort of trim that pocket depth back a little bit. Okay. Perhaps in hindsight I should have done that, but there we are. It is what it is. Okay, so that is side 2 done. I'm just going to pop my little photo mat in there. So I'm just going to pop that over in our album out the way for the minute. And then side 3 was our vertical pocket. So let me just grab that. So they're all in a pile here, ready to go. Here's the vertical pocket rather, not horizontal. So again, that's just going to stick on there, and I'm just going to tuck that in. All right, and again, I've left this quite plain because I've got lots of lovely bits and pieces that I can use to add some more detail to it later. And I think sometimes that really does depend on what photos you're using as to what elements you add to your decoration. So just making sure. Now, if you're finding it hard to see the background, just tuck your background in, and then you can make sure that that has got a nice straight edge to it, which it has. And then here we go. We're going to do this one. Okay, like so. Turn that over. I'm just going to tuck that in, and I'm just going to line it up with the patterned paper on the front pocket, and I'm just trying to make sure that I've got that nice and straight against that edge there as well, and that I'm coming up about 1/8 of an inch gap. I can see that is slightly out. Right, okay, so I think we're there. Okay, so that is side 3 all done, the vertical pocket. And then if I flip this over, we've got the belly band and the photo mat and the mini photo album. Okay, so let's just take out the photo mat for the minute. Okay, and there's the belly band for that one. So I've definitely got that one, and I've just gone with the same sort of papers on the inside. Okay, and I've noticed already actually that I've not rounded these corners at the top here. So let's just, obviously an oversight on my part, so let's just do that now. I suppose it's one way of me showing you what I did. Okay, and I'm going to stick that one in first. There we go. There we are. Okay, stick that one in. So I'm going to lift up the belly band and just slide that in. Okay, and now I can maneuver that into position, making sure I've got the same distance as I can all the way around. All right, there we go. Let's just pop the belly band on. Okay, and I've gone completely dotty on this one. Just kept it all the same on the inside, but you can change it up. Right, okay. And now I can tuck my photo mat in there and then come down and do the bottom. Okay. Now, obviously, the bottom paper is going to be slightly thinner because of the bottom pocket. So it's not going to line up completely with the flap. So don't worry too much. Let's just tuck that in so I can see that's straight, not quite. Let's just move you down a little bit. Okay, and we're just going to put this last bit in, so that will be all the inside done. And slide that in. There we go. Okay, making sure that again I'm about 1/8 of an inch from that first score line and that I line up with the pocket at the bottom, because don't forget we allowed for a gusset at the top here. Okay, all right, and then the little folio that I made, I've not cut out my patterned papers yet for those, but I can do that and fill that in when I need to. So that's a little folio that goes in there. We can tuck in another little mat there, and then we've got the outside to do as well. So I need to just slightly corner around those bottom page here. Okay, and we're just going to ink those. There we go. And now I can just attach that one. And that is side 3 and 4 done. And as soon as I find my belly band, I'll add that in as well. Okay. And again, I'm just going to line that up. So lots going on with this particular side, but I think it looks really effective once you've got your patterned papers on there. And there we are. So you've got your lift up, you've got your belly band, you've got your photo mat in there and your photos there. And then on the other side, we took out our photo mats. Let's tuck those. I think they were the ones that went in there. No, I think those were the little ones. All right, and that is side 4 done. Right, now we are moving on to our side 5, which is our acetate pocket, a full page acetate pocket with the frame. And then we've got side 6, which is the one with the envelopes. I'll just put that to one side for a minute. So I've already added all my detail to the inside, so I'm just going to cut this out. So I've just done all my faux stitching and everything on there. So let's just tuck this straight in. Now with this one, what I normally do is I normally bring the paper up to the top edge of where the acetate pocket is. So I'm just going to slide that in, slide that right down. It is a little tight. Okay, I'm just going to let that sit on there. Let's just get rid of that glue. Okay, and just give that a good press down. And so when you open the pocket a little bit, you can just see that very top edge of the patterned paper. I don't want it coming right the way in, so I'll just leave that so you can sort of see a tiny smidgen of that. Okay, there's my photo mat, so let's just pop that in there out of the way so I don't lose that for the minute, because I've already lost the belly band, but I did find it and I've tucked it back on page side one. Right, okay, so the frame. All right, now in previous videos I've done where I've cut out the whole paper and then cut out the centerpiece, but for this one we're going to do strips. So I'm looking at my measurement here of the width of the frame itself, which is 1/2 inch, and if I want to come in 1/8 inch either side, that means that we're going to do a 1/4 inch frame all the way round. So this is my strip of paper. Now, bearing that in mind, I've gone with 3 7/8 inches. Get your words right, Deb. 3 7/8 inch coming along the bottom, and then coming up the side is 5 7/8 inch. Okay, so we'll cut the two long ones first. So 5 7/8. So I'm just going to rest that on there. Now obviously I've not inked or faux stitched any of this because obviously I haven't cut it down in yet. Okay, and then the other one was 3 7/8. So let's just 3 7/8. Just line that up. And now this is why sometimes it's good to hang on to any thin strips you've got, especially for jobs like this. Okay, all right, and then we want to cut that at a quarter of an inch. Right, so we're just going to do one. That's not quite cut through. There we go. All right, so this will come along the top. Okay, so we're going to cut the next one like so. And because of the pattern, because it's dotty, there isn't directional to it, which means that it doesn't matter too much which way I'm going to stick these on. So let's just line that up. Okay, so that's that side bit done. 1, 2, 3, and we're just going to come in and do the final piece. Let's line that all up. Okay, all right, let's just put those bits out the way. Now you can do it one of two ways. You can either stick one down first and then work your frame to line up your frame as you go round. Okay, and then you would come in that way and up the other way, or you can join them together while they are flat and then move them over. So I'm not going for any mitered corners on this particular paper. I'm just literally just going to overlap and square that off on each corner. Okay, so we're just going to add a little bit of glue, but before I do that I need to ink it, don't I? Let's just do that quickly. There we go. Nearly forgot, Deb. There we are. Right, we'll quickly ink these like so. Okay, and to be honest, I'm not going to go and faux stitch all of these now. I'll do that once the page is all finished, and that I can go back and do that later. You don't need to see me faux stitching all of these little strips. Okay. Right, so where were we? So we were getting our strip. We're going to add a little bit of glue to the end. And I'm just going to get my strip, and I'm just going to square that off on that top there, so it overlaps. And to hold that in place, I'm just going to get one of my lovely little clips. Okay, and just check the way that you've put your paper on. I've put the short strip over the top, so I need to make sure I do exactly the same on this one, which is going to be the opposite corner. Okay, and we're just going to line that up like so. Make sure that's nice and square, and I've gone over the top. Okay, and then I need to make sure that I come over the top on the other two, or I could go under on the other two. It's up to you how you want to do that, but I'm going to go over the top. A bit of glue, so this one should be fixed now, so I'm just going to attach that over the top like so. Hold that in place, and now this one is going to go over the top, and hopefully we will have it done. Okay, right, I'm just going to pop that one on there like so, making sure that that is sitting. Whoops. It's alive, everybody. Right, okay, and we're just going to peg that on there. Now I can see that that is not quite lying as flat as I would hope, but I think once we've got it on the paper, it will be fine. Okay, right, so now we're just going to add our glue, and we're going to stick this down. But as I said, if you don't want to do it this way, you can just stick them straight down onto your page. Okay, now my tweezers. Let's move that out of the way. I'm just going to line that up. I'm just allowing for that 1/8 of an inch going all the way around. Okay, and there we go, and that is side 5 done. Fairly straightforward. When I come to decorate, I like to put little elements on the corners just to sort of lift it a little bit more, but that is our acetate side done. Okay, so moving on to our side 6, which has got our envelope maker. So now, if you haven't got an envelope maker, but you've got some smaller envelopes. You can put in a like a 3.5 by 4.5 envelope. You can absolutely do that. Now this is the back of the paper. That's just going to go onto our page like so. Okay, and we're just going to tuck that on there, line that in. Here we are. Now this is going on to the back of what was our secret pocket. So there's our secret pocket, and as you can see, I've got a little photo tab with the photo mat there. All right, okay, so I've gone for something a little bit retro on the back here. So that's the back, and now the envelope. Okay, so the envelope, as I said, I think it was 3.5 by 4.5. So this was cut at 6 3/4 square, which it was. As you can see, I've already gone round and inked and faux stitched it because it just makes it easier. So let's just get this out. So I look here and it says here, where are we? Score line 3. So I'm going to start up here with score line 3, and I'm going to line the paper up like so. Is there anything in there? I thought there was something in there. No, okay. So we're just going to line that up. I'm going to punch down, and where this score line is here, if you come out from that side there, you'll see that is our score line, and I've just punched that. Now with the score line, I'm going to line it up with the score line guide here, and just make a note of where it falls, which is about 3 3/4. Okay, and I'm going to come down and do the score line on there. This should bring us back to 3 inches again. So we're just going to punch that. Oops, didn't do my score line. 3 inches, and come along down there. And then the final side, which I think was about 3 3/4. Okay, I'm just going to punch that and bring that score line like so. So now we've got our 4 main lines in for our envelope, and then I'm just going to go in and do the edges. Now, although I had gone around and faux stitched this, I will just like quickly touch up those areas. I'm just trying to make it a little bit quicker for you guys, so you haven't got to worry too much about that. And then we're just going to give that a little fold and crease for a minute, just while I've got my score board to hand. Here we go, making sure that they're all going to go in like so. Okay, let's just tuck that out the way. Come in with the ink. I'm just going to come into those corners, around those edges. But like I said, if you haven't got an envelope maker, you don't have to put an envelope on it. You could just add a photo mat to your page if you wanted, or you could repeat one of the other elements that we've already done on the back of the pocket. Okay, so let's just bring that round to these sides. Okay, just to finish this off. And then we can get this stuck down onto our page. There we go. Right, almost done. And our last little bit. Right. Okay. so now we're just going to fold in our internal pieces, all the shorter sides. That's going to be my front and that's going to be my top. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit of glue, or you could add a bit of red liner tape, but I'm just going to go with a bit of glue. Just come round that edge. I'm going to come round and do the other one around that bottom bit. And then we're just going to fold that down. Like so. Just going to add my clip to that just to hold that down for a minute. And then you need to just make a decision as to what you want to do with regards to your closure. So I suppose I could have put a magnet on the inside and that would have locked it down. But I think what I'm going to do is get a Velcro dot and I'm just going to stick that down on there like so. Now, normally you can only get Velcro dots in 2 colours. I think probably the best one I'm going to go for is the white. So we're just going to peel off the hook and I'm just going to put that on the top like that to the center point, and we're just going to get the soft fluffy bit not stuck to my fingers though, and I'm just going to bring that down and I'm going to put some pressure on there. Hopefully that will hold that in place. Right, we now get rid of those, and now we can bring back our envelope. And so I was just going to tuck my envelope onto the page like so. Depending on the size of your envelope, if you made one slightly smaller, you could maybe come off at an angle if you wanted. You could make a really tiny one and have it down at the bottom, but I just wanted this as an extra, so somebody can open it up and tuck whatever's in there. And you've got the green on the inside which matches in with the green on the outside, so I thought that worked quite well. And because this is going to have a little bit of usage to it, we're going to use our lovely wider red liner tape just to stick it down, just to make sure that it's not going to come off the page. So we're just going to add a strip down the middle. Some scissors, there we go. And I'm just going to do one either side. But like I said, if you don't want to add an envelope, you don't have to. You could put a lovely photo mat on there. It's totally up to you. Okay. Oh, I've got red liner tape stuck everywhere. There we go. Right, so let's get peeling these off, and then we're just going to add a little bit of glue and we can get this done then. Here we are. Okay. Right. Okay, and now I'm just going to center it on our page. So I'm going more by the sides of the patterned paper for my centering, because that's where your eye is going to be drawn. Okay, and that is side 6 done with our little Velcro. Right, so let's have a little look at side 7, which is the tag pocket. Okay, and I've stuck on a 3x4 card on the front of my pocket. Now you'll notice that there is a bit of a wider gap in the black coming down the side as opposed to the top. It's just that the pocket itself is a little bit wider because it needs to be able to take the photo mats tags, which will obviously take a 3x4 photo. All right, so the measurements I've given you for the patterned paper are not for the 3x4 card. They are a little bit wider. Okay, just to give you a heads up. If you wanted to stick a 3x4 card on there, then obviously you can do. Now here are the photo mats. So as you can see, I've cut strips here to fit, and I've just corner rounded them and finished those off, so they just sit quite nicely in our pocket there. Now it's up to you whether or not you want to put on like little tag, you know, little pulls, like baker's twine or something like that. Then obviously I would punch a hole in and do that, but I'm quite liking the fact that they're quite nice like that as it is, so I might just leave them like that at the moment. And as you can see here, it just sort of blends in quite nicely. We took a lot of pictures, which I think is a great card for this album. And then on this side, it was just a case of sticking everything on. So 2x2 card stock, and again I've just got my little photo mat on that one, the same on that one, and then on this bottom one here you've got the 2 photo mats as well. I suppose I could have put that on black cardstock, but if I'm going to stick a little photo on there, I'm not overly worried. And then you can put a little strip in there to do your little journaling if you so wish. Okay, so that is side 7 and 8 done, so let's just pop those out the way. Now side 9 is where we've got the gusset pocket and we've got the folio. Okay, so I've cut the back paper already, so let's just get this stuck in and the front pocket. So I'll just get these stuck on like so. Here we are. I'll just pop that on there. So I'll just do the pocket first. Now because this is a gusset pocket, I just need to be a little bit careful pushing this down on here. I don't want to sort of crease that edge too much. Okay, I want to keep it nice and sort of boxed. There we go. And do my cardstock. You can see I've come to the end of a page here to use up this bit, but you're not going to see that. It's going to be on the inside right at the bottom. So sometimes having that extra half-inch strip at the bottom of the 12x12 papers is quite useful. So let's just tuck that in, and I'm just going to line that up with the pocket at the front like so, and just give that a little push in. I can just get my hand in there. Right, okay, so that is the pocket and the page done. Now the folio, let's have a little look. So this is what we made earlier. Here we are, and I'm just going to put this on the front, and then I can go in and put my photo mats, which I've already cut out, that can sort of be added to the papers or to the cardstock. And so I can just go in and put those all in as we go through. I'm just going to tuck them in there because I won't do that now. I'll do that later. But let's just get this decorated. So really not much to worry too much about the folio itself in terms of decoration. It's fairly straightforward. And we're just going to pop that on there, and again just making sure I'm allowing for that roughly that 1/8 of an inch trim all the way round. Okay. And then the belly band, I've cut the 2 strips which are going to overlap where they will be overlapped to the belly band itself. So I'm just making sure that that will be the one that will be at the back. So let's just see which one of these I wanted at the front. I think I've got that one at the front. So again, if you've got directional paper, just be wary of which way round you're going to put these. Okay, right, okay, here we go. I'm just going to tag this on here. I love the fact that it's the aeroplanes because it gives that impression of, you know, you could be going to all of those places. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Right, so I've stuck that one on there. Now I'm going to turn it over and making sure I've got my aeroplanes going up the right way. I'm going to stick this one on like so. Whoops, come here. There we are. I'm just going to tag that one in on there. And I haven't quite got 1/8 of an inch on there because actually the belly band, well, what I did with the belly band was I think I trimmed it down just a fraction just so it sat nicely with the strip, because this came off the strip of the paper set. So now I can tuck that in, that slides down, and then we can tuck that into our pocket. There we go. All right. And on the other side, we've got our stacked pocket. So let's just get these out. And our little photo mat, that's the back of the cardstock. Now, what you will notice is that side 10 and side 11, I am decorating with exactly the same papers. It's just that how it's going to be in the album. I think that will follow through really nicely. So we're just going to put on our base. Here we are. There we go. And we're just going to tack that on. I'm making sure I've got a nice straight edge where that is. There we go. I'm trying not to push too much because obviously I've got the gusset pocket on the other side. And whoops, nearly lost it there, Deb. And then we got the red, which is just going to come in, and that will line up with the pocket below, making sure I've got that nice and straight. There we are. And then the back is going to slide right down the back between those two pockets that we've just put in. Oh, and my glue is nearly at an end. I'll grab another glue. Right, okay. Let's just give that time to work its way down. Right, okay. So for this one, I've just got to tuck it through, straight through, and I'll just line it up with the top edge and these sides as it comes down. Right, so we'll give that a good push down, and now my stack back pocket will slot in nicely like that, and then my other two little photo mats will tuck in like so. There we go. So that is that page done, and now we're on to the final page. Now this one we've got the diagonal pockets to do. Let's just take that lot off. So let's just take these out. There we are, and as you can see, I've used the same paper as before, so we're just going to glue that down. Let's see if this one's working now. Right, just gonna grab my, there we are, just gonna try and unblock the glue. It's typical, isn't it? Always when you're right in the middle of something. Happens to the best of us. That's it. Right, okay, let's see where we're at now. That's better. That's coming through. Not quite as quickly as the other one, but I think we've still got a blockage. You watch, I'll push it and it'll all splurt out. Oh, there we are. Now we're cooking with gas, as they say. Right. Right, okay, so we're going to tuck this one in. And there's our diagonal pocket. So this will help when we come to line up with the rest of it. And I'm taking it right into that base of that pocket. Okay, so that pocket edge comes along, and then you've got the black, then you've got the patterned paper coming along there. All right, so that's that one. Now for our actual pockets, so we've got our squares, so we're going to cut these diagonally like we've done before, and and then we can get these put on. So diagonal, just give this a little cut. Okay, and we'll hang on to that bit because that bit might come in handy for something else. And we're just going to line this one up. Here we go. Whoops, that went a bit wonky. Right, let's try and do that again. Luckily, the blade went the other way, not the way that I wanted. Right, there we go. Okay, a little bit of ink. And I will faux stitch around these because we'll need it before it goes on the actual cardstock itself. Right. Alright, so I think I've got this one going that way. Actually, I think it was the other triangle I need, was it? No, I had done it that way. That's okay, just checking. Right. Okay, a little bit of faux stitching. And so on the very small triangle, we need to go all the way around all three sides, because that's going to be the one that you're going to see the most of. Like so. Here we are. Right, okay, because that's going to sit like that. And then this one, I just need to come, I don't need to go right to the corner because we're not going to see the whole corner. We will see this long line coming along this way. There we go. I'm just going to come down a fraction on that one. Right, okay. So we're going to tuck this one in, and that will be glued in. And the idea is to line up our paper with the back paper as best as we can. Okay, and then the other one on the front will just sit. Oh, actually, I think I've done that the wrong way round, haven't I? In fact, I should have done it with my little suitcases, not the aeroplane. Okay, so that really needs to go that way. I'll cut myself another piece and we'll get that sorted. Right, now we've got it done right. So we're going to stick these down. So we've already stuck the back in. And we're just going to add our glue. Just going to pop this in. So this is going to cover those internal lug bits of that top pocket. So that should make it nice and smooth. I'm trying to get that in as much as I can. And I'm making sure as well that we've got a nice straight line coming along that pocket. And then the last little bit, there we are. Okay, and that is our side 11 done. Okay, so I'll just give that a good stick on there, let that dry, and then we are all good to go. And these are obviously our little photo mats, so we're going to have one tucked in there and those two tucked in there. Okay, so our final side now is the pull it waterfall. Okay, and basically what I've done is I've made a back page, which, although we've already stuck our thing on, we are actually going to slot the back page down on the inside of that mechanism. Okay, And I don't know if you can see where the belly band goes round, and we've got that gap. That is where our paper is going to tuck into, because what I found is that when that is added, when it's going to cover up the inside, which means that when you pull this out, you see you've got a nice little bit here, but when you pull this out, you're going to have that paper behind as it flaps over, which is just going to make it look nicer. That's why I didn't put this on first and then stick this on, because you'll see the belly band showing. So let's get this one stuck on first. Right, so the back page then, as I was saying, will tuck straight in down the back there, and we are good to go with that. So let's get some glue. This paper quality is brilliant, I have to say. Right, let's get that, make sure I've got it going up the right way. So I'm tucking it on the inside, and it's going down over where the belly band is. I'm just going to slide that in like so. I'm trying to get that nice and centered. If you find that your belly band is a little bit on the tight side and you need to trim off a little bit off your back paper, then, you know, obviously just go ahead and do it. Okay. All right, so that is stuck on. So let's just give that a little pull. So as you pull that down, you can see the paper in the back there, and then actually you've got it just poking out at the bottom down there, so it just sort of finishes off the page. Right, so onto the last little bit then in terms of decoration. So I've cut one piece to go on the front here, and what I've decided is that as you pull this up here, although we've got the photo mats already attached, I've decided I'm going to put some nice paper on the inside as well, just so it gives it a nice bit of colour all the way through and it finishes it off. So we'll get the first one stuck on, and then we'll sort out what order we want to do the rest. So I'll just add some glue onto there. Okay. Right, let's just have a little look, see how that's doing. That's fairly centered, jolly good. And the papers I've got coming down, so we've got 1, 2, I've already inked and faux stitched these, so I can see which order I want to put them in. Now, because I've got that paper in the background, I'm probably going to put that in the middle. I don't necessarily want 2 lots of patterned like that, so I think we'll go, that will be the order that we'll stick these in. So that's just going to tuck in there. Now obviously, again, if the measurements are slightly out for you guys, then just tweak. Okay, tweak your patterned paper, and we're just going to pop that on there like so. And the other good thing about putting your patterned paper on here as well, it just helps with the sturdiness of the mechanism as well, in terms of keeping, you know, stopping the paper from getting too buckled and that. So let's stick this one on. I've got little stripes on that one. Okay, over to the next one. And we are almost done, everybody. It's just the front covers and putting the pages in, and that is us sorted. Right, this one. Right, stick that one on there. Move that over a little bit. Okay, now you can see as I'm folding these over, this bit is coming down here. Now I've not put anything on there as yet, because what I'm going to say is that you can either add a photo mat to go on there, or if you wanted, you could add some more patterned paper. Come on, glue, we're almost there. I'm determined to get every ounce of glue out of this bottle. Okay, all right, and this one here, I've got a little bit of patterned paper to just go over the belly band. So that's what I mean with the patterned paper when I say about the belly band bit. It's just that strip to go over. Okay, so we're just going to add our glue to that. Let's just put that down so that can, like so. So that's just going over the belly band and just finishing off that. Now I don't really want to pull that anymore because then it makes it awkward to sort of push the whole thing back in. So like I was saying, you could put a little photo there, photo mat there, and maybe just a strip of paper or not, or you could just leave it with just a photo, and then obviously when that one comes down, that one goes up. Or you could do a slightly bigger photo mat. You might even get like a, almost like a, not quite a 4x4 on there, but you see what I mean. So see, or I could move that up a little bit there and have the patterned paper coming down the base there. But having said all of that, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pop that photo mat on there for now at the bottom, and then I'll decide whether or not I'm going to put any more patterned paper on there. Okay, all right, and now that is done, and now I'll push that up, and that is going to, it's a little bit tricky when you're holding it. Once it's in situ, it will work much better. So as that comes down, you've got the photo mat there. Yeah, I think it might need a little bit on there. I'll go back and do that later. Okay, but there we go. And then that just brings that all down like so and hides it all away. Okay, and that is all our pages decorated. So as to the album cover, now in the original one that I did for the Mr. Fix-It and Garage papers, I actually put ribbon on the front, so you could tie it off. But because I've made the opening on our box so much bigger now, you're not going to need to have that ribbon because that has got plenty of movability in there. And even if it's fairly jammed as well, you have a bit of a gator mouth, you're still not going to need your ribbon on there. But if you want to put it on, that's fine. Then you'll just need to do a couple of strips, and have a look at some of my other videos where I've done that, and then you can see. And then we've just got our papers to go on the front, like so. But as I said, I'll stick them on once we've put the rest of the album together. Right, so here we are now, ready to add our pages. Okay, and obviously we put our hinge in, but we didn't put any red liner tape on, and this was because I always leave this right to the end in case I decide I want to swap some of my pages around. Okay, but for this video I've kept it fairly straightforward in that you know the order that I'm going to be putting them in, because I've gone from side 1 to 12, and that's how I'm going to put them actually in the album. But if you decided you want to swap them around, then obviously you don't put your red liner tape on till the very end. So because this first two sides, side 1 and side 2, are going to stick to the very first hinge on the left hand side, so they're going to go in like so, and then you're going to have side 3 and 4 is going to come in on the other side of that hinge. So if you imagine you're sandwiching them together, when you open it up, they're the two sides. So side 2 and side 3 is where you need to put your red liner tape. Okay, And basically I've gone ahead and done that with the others, but I'll talk you through. And actually I've thought what I'll do is I'll make sure I've added it to the pattern so you know what sides the red liner tape needs to be added to. Okay, so let's start off with the first page. Okay, side 1 and side 2. So the beauty of these hinge mechanism is that there's no mitre in here. You're literally just going to push that right up against it, and where that score line folds, it's going to attach itself directly to the hinge. Okay, and you make sure that your top and your bottom of your page are in line with the top and the bottom of the hinge, because that's the way that it's been designed, and it will grab and hold that. Okay, the other thing about this album is, if you've done any of my albums with this hinge system, is that, you know, if over time it comes apart or you make a mistake, then you've only got to remove the one side. You haven't got to try and get a whole page off. I've seen some albums do it as a pocket, and that can cause all sorts of issues. So yeah, that's why I designed it like this. But anyway, so here we go. So I've got my red liner tape on, plenty of glue, wiggle room glue as I call it, and I'm just going to line up those edges, and I'm just going to gently lift that so that that now attaches to the top. So what you're looking for is that score line to come almost to the top of where that hinge is. Okay, you can get your hands in there and give it a good squeeze, as it were. All right, just to hold that in place. And then we're going to come in with side 3, which has got the tape on, and that's going to come in, and I can line that up beautifully with that on that side. Now what I will say is that do give these hinges a bit of backwards and forwards bending, as it were, just so that the paper has got some memory as to which way it's meant to be going. And as you're flipping through the album, obviously it's going to be going both ways, so you just need to make sure that you've got plenty of flexibility on that. So let's just add the glue. Okay, and now I'm going to go in on, this is hinge 1 we're still working on the right hand side of hinge 1, and I'm just going to line that up with the other page, and I'm just making sure that that top and that bottom are attached. And now I can go in and give that a good squeeze. There we go. All right, and that is our first 2 pages in. Okay, so now we're coming to side 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. So if you sandwich them together, open them up, there are the sides that you're going to be putting your red liner tape on. So that's going to be side 6 and 7. Okay, and again I've just made sure that I've left that nice and flexible. So again we're going to do exactly the same as we did the first 2. I always add a little bit of glue. And the other thing is that because these pages lie fairly flat on the hinges, you can really make sure that you've got a good alignment with the previous ones that you've put in as well. So I can see already that that is going to work beautifully, and we're just going to tuck that in. Just going to get my hand in there, give that a good squeeze. That lies nice and flat and firm against that one, so we're all in alignment. And again on this side, side 7. Oh, we've got squeaky wiggle glue. Okay. And now we're just going to, again, going in, this is going in on the right hand side of the second hinge. Okay, and just be careful, all right, because I have seen in the past where people have made my albums where they've stuck stuck like 2 pages on one side on the one hinge. It's a page aside for the hinge. Okay, so hinge 1 had sides 1, 2, 3, 4. Hinge 2 has got 5, 6, 7, 8, and then our third and final hinge, okay, which is 9, 10, 11 and 12. And again, you've got the tape on 9 and, no, hang on, where are we? 8, 9, on 10 and 11, okay, because that's how we're doing that. And we're just going to, it's not quite stuck down there, okay. Now these ones are a little bit bulkier because we've got gusset pockets and we've got the waterfall, okay. And I always put anything like a gusset or a waterfall on the outside of the page, because where we've got the nice gap either side, it just allows that extra bit of space. And we're just going to tuck this in now and hold that in situ. I'm just going to go in and tuck that in. So you can see now that when that page comes up on that side and that hinge, we've got enough space there for it to compensate for the gusset. Okay, and then our final side, so this is side 11 and 12. I'm going to add our glue. Obviously I've left all my photo mats in here. You could take them out if you need. If you find it easier, I've just left them all in. I think it's so I know where I've put them. Right, okay, and now I'm just going to, right, bend that one back a little bit. Right, okay, line up this final page and, okay, and we've got contact. Okay, and now I can go in and give that a good squeeze. Okay, so here we are. That is all our pages into our album. How are we looking? Not too bad. We're a little bit gapey, but I think last time, because I did put the ribbon on, perhaps I will put some ribbon on after all. It's probably not until you get to this stage and you see whether you're going to add it or not. Okay. And we certainly need to do that before we put our covers on. So it's still going to fit in nicely though, so that's fine. Okay, so let's just get my ribbon and we're going to get that bit done. Okay, so here's the ribbon. And I'm just keeping the same ribbon all the way through just to keep that continuity. And I think last time I did this, I think we did it about 10 or 12. So that's 8 and 4. So I'm going to do 12 strips. This is an inch long. Hark at me. An inch wide, Deb, honestly. An inch wide, everybody, about 12 inches in length. Okay, and going to mark up the center point. So this is 7 inches, so the center point is going to be 3.5, and I need to come out 1/2 inch either side just to give me the guide for laying the ribbon down. And we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. So here we go. So we want 3 and 4. And 3 and 4. It's just a rough estimate. Okay. And I always stick my ribbon down with a bit of red liner tape because it just firms it in place. So we're just going to cut out a bit of this off. So let's just snip that. I'm just going to lay that on the ribbon like so. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Okay, I'm just going to add that on there. Okay, so we're just going to take one piece. So basically this is just going to sit in the centre there. I might bring that back just a little bit. Oh, it's come in. Yeah, okay. Right, so we're just going to get the red liner tape off. And I don't want the red liner tape to go right to the edge, because obviously I'm going to have the paper coming round with an 1/8 of an inch gap. So I'm just going to fold that back on itself so I can see roughly where that is. I'm lining it up between those marks there. Okay, so that's one done. And then we're going to flip that over, and I'm going to do the other side. Come on. This is the only thing with red liner tape on material. Okay, oh, it is coming off. Jolly good. I didn't. Oh no, and now I've stuck it down again. Come on. There we go. All right, I'm just going to fold back where that red liner tape is. Come in about an 1/8 of an inch. Line it up with our markings, like so. And hopefully they will be in alignment. Looks like I've gone a little bit wonky on that one. Let's just straighten that up a bit. Let's have a little look. That's not too bad, and I think we've got enough ribbon here to tie. We don't want a massive bow, we just need a smallish bow just to hold that together. Okay, let's just tie it a little bit tighter, Deb. That's it, get a grip. Okay, right, here we are. So that holds that in situ like so. So yeah, I think 12 inches is about right, and obviously I'll just taper off those edges, just give it a neater finish. And now I'm just going to add our papers to the front, and then that is pretty much done. And then it is literally just over to all the decorating with your ephemera or stickers and so forth that you want to do with your album. So we'll just get these last little bits put on. Now when I put this on, I just want to make sure as well that these edges are going to line up with those that are on the spine, and that I've got my 1/8 of an inch going all the way round. There we are, and that we are nice and straight, especially on the front. Okay, like so. And that's going to seal that in nicely as well, that ribbon. So just give that a little, make sure we're nice and straight. And now I'll just do the back. And then we are good to go. Okay, just going to tilt this up, line it along that edge. There we are. Make sure I'm lined up with the other side. Perfect. All right, so now, yes, it's just decorating the front. And the thing is that you have got, when you look at your box, when we tuck the album in there, you have got enough room to put some 3D elements and stuff on the front of your album if you so wished. But there we go. That is pretty much sorted, and I'll come back and show you it all completely decorated once I've done it. Okay, right, and as promised, I've just gone in and added a couple of little details in terms of decoration on here, so I'm just going to quickly show you. I've kept it quite plain because for the person who's going to get this set can go ahead and add their extra bits in. So I quite like this. My travels, my story, my life. I thought that was quite a nice start on there. Here we've got journey together, life is a journey. We've got the little suitcase there with the itinerary, so you could tuck that in there. I've popped in some of the little 3x4 cards, so that's quite nice, and a little itinerary on there. We've got life changing, and I've just literally picked up a couple of little bits and pieces on here. I like this one, date thing, best thing I did, best thing I ate, etc. So I thought that was quite a nice card. Just a little bit of detail, and again, little travel sticker here, so you could add some dates or something. I went in and put the papers in on my little mini folio. Just tuck that back in there. Okay, the acetate pocket, I've just punched the hole in and just added a bit of baker's twine, and because it was Italy, I've added the red, white and green twine on there. Then we got our secret pocket. This one here, just put a little here button because then it shows that you need to open that up, and then we've just got a little journaling card like so. Obviously we put that on earlier, and I've just added the patterned papers onto the top there. Here we are. I've just added a little aeroplane just to link in with the aeroplanes, and with the little photo mats going on there on our little stacked pocket, and I've just added that on the front, once in a lifetime. So on the accordion, I've just put in the photo mats for that, and then again just a little bit of detail, nothing too much, because like I said, she can add extra bits and pieces on there. And then, oh yeah, jet lag. And then, yeah, as you saw earlier, I'd put in all the papers and little airmail one on there as well. And that is our album finished. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed the 3 parts to this set. If you've missed part 1, which was making the keepsake box, and part 2 when we started making the album, then do check out our YouTube channel. Okay, and also, you know, it'd be really lovely to see any of your finished keepsake boxes and your album on our Facebook page, so please do pop them onto our group. You can do a video or put a selection of photos on, that'd be lovely. And also, just to help our little community, please do, you know, like and subscribe as well, so it all helps. But there we are, that is our celebration album and keepsake box. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with our next project. Take care. Bye.